Right, here we go. Third and final history paper, Impact of War. This is the sources paper. This is different from the previous two, so hopefully this little video clip will help you get your head around what they want you to do during the exam. Okay, what do you need before you start revising for this? Number one, you need your exercise book. It will look like this. This is the front page of your exercise book. That's absolutely crucial for you. You've also got this little sheet, got the big poster behind me. Hopefully you had a look at that whilst you're in the classroom. So have a look at this. It's a condensed version of the advice that's on the bigger green sheet. So I'm going to be going through this green sheet with you. You should have your own version of it. Have a look at it before the exam. And you should also have this pink A-star example. Again, we went through it in the classroom. You answered questions, kind of trying to follow that template very successfully in many of your cases. So all of these things are really useful for you as you're revising. Let's have a look at the paper itself. This is different from the previous two papers. Two bits to it. You've got the actual paper you're writing, and you've got a sources booklet. First thing to say about this paper, do not attempt to start from the back. I told you for crime, I told you for Germany, start from the back. Do not do that under any circumstances for this paper, because you need to build up and work through all the questions from the front. You can't really answer the last questions until you've answered the previous four. So it's very important, work from the front. In the sources booklet, you will have 6 different sources, different types of sources. Could be photographs, could be posters, could be cartoons, could be diary entries, could be historical accounts. They're all different. They will all vary in one way or another. The ratio in terms of time is exactly the same. 1.5 minutes per mark. So a 6-mark question, you'd spend 9 minutes on it, etc. Okay, let's go through the questions one by one. First question, 5 questions. Only the middle 3 want you to talk about nature, origin and purpose. That means the provenance of those particular sources might influence how you feel about them, how you judge them, how you rate them. So bear that in mind. 5 questions. The middle 3, only the middle 3, will want you to consider the nature, origin and purpose of that source. Of the 5 questions, the first one does not require any own knowledge. The other 4, you have to bring in your own knowledge to enhance and to embolden your observations about the particular source. Okay, first question, very, very straightforward. It's what can you learn? Make an inference. Look at the source. What does the source suggest to you about the particular question? This paper is about the Zeppelin raids and the Zeppelin bombing attacks in the First World War. Important to stress to you, you need to revise the whole of your exercise book, but all of the questions will be related to just one of the topics. For example, all of the questions, all the sources could be related to the Blitz, or to evacuation, or to women in factories in the First World War, or to the welfare state created by Beveridge during the Second World War. So bear that in mind. The whole exam and all of the sources will be on one particular theme within our strand of impact of war. So bear that in mind. So first question, pretty straightforward. What can you learn from the source? Begin, I can learn from source A. Then make your inference, and then support your inference by referring directly to words, phrases, the nature of the piece of writing. You don't have to talk about who produced it and why they produced it for number 1. It's quite a straightforward question. Right, second question. This one will want you to talk and think about why a source has been created. What's its purpose? What's its message? Hopefully it'll be a visual source, because I think they're easier to get your head around. It might not be. It might be a piece of text. For example, it could be something like this. And it might say, what's the purpose of this representation? You have to talk about why has the artist or why has the photographer created this image? Why has the artist made her smiling? Why is the sky blue? Why does she look so happy in what she's doing? He's done that for a reason. for a purpose, because he wants, in this case, women to volunteer to join the land army because we're desperate for farmers in the Second World War. But make sure you're talking about and referring to the size of the font, the colour of things, if it's a colour picture, the expression, the facial features. Think about what the artist has included and what the artist has not included. What kind of impression is trying to be created in the piece of text, or in this case in the poster. That's the second question. You have to think about the provenance. Where does it come from? Who produced it? And for what reason? Okay, third question. Study source C and use your own knowledge. And this is a kind of straightforward question. You look at the source, you analyse the source, you think about what's in it. Does the nature, origin and purpose give you any indication of why it's been produced and for what reason? And you have to bring in your own knowledge for this. Pretty straightforward question. Number 4. Right, number 4 is a reliability question. And if you're judging, you have 2 sources and you have to decide which of the 2 is more reliable. Do you trust it? And so you pick out information from both sources, the content, you deal with the content in both of them, but then you also have to bear in mind who produced it and for what reason. And that might influence how reliable you think the source is. You're looking to see, is it trustworthy? Do you believe it? Or was it produced perhaps to ridicule somebody? If it's a cartoon, it's produced to ridicule somebody. Is it a piece of entertainment? It's designed to make people laugh perhaps. Is it coming from an official government body? In that case, that ups the ante. That makes it even more reliable. If it's coming from someone who's a key figure, in Winston Churchill or whoever, again, that's going to make it more reliable. Is it from someone who was there at the time, or someone who is perhaps a historian looking back on events? Don't always assume that something from the time is more reliable than something produced later. Remember, a historian writing 20, 30 years after events has the opportunity to look at a wide range of sources when they're coming to a decision. So bear that in mind. When we looked at a source before, it's written by a child. And again, you spotted that might not be as reliable as something written by an adult. Okay, so that's the 4th question. Study sources, 2 sources, D&E, use your own knowledge. How reliable? Do you trust it? Okay, that leaves us with the last question, which is question 5. You've got the longest time on this. You've also got some added marks for spelling, punctuation and grammar. This is an essay, and in this case, this one, it's a question, and it might want you to look at 2 sides of the story. It gives you 3 sources to look at. I think 2 of those will agree with the proposition, 1 of those will disagree with the proposition. So bear in mind, write it like an essay with separate paragraphs, talk about those sources that agree with the proposition, bring in your own knowledge that agrees with the proposition, then bring in the counter-argument, probably one of the sources, and then bring in your own knowledge, again, that would argue against the proposition in the question. It says you can use other sources, but don't feel you need to. The 3 they give you is absolutely fine. What's crucial is that you come to a judgment. In your conclusion, either agree or disagree with the proposition. No wrong or right answer, but explain your choice. Really important that you come to a judgment, explain your choice. Right, hopefully that's of some help. Please look at all the bits of paper you've got at home. Please also go on Show My Homework. I'll put some past papers on there, and I'll put a massive, it's called Impact Megatron PowerPoint, that tests your knowledge of the various aspects of impact of war. There's also a revision session on the Monday before the Tuesday exam in the afternoon. Come into school around 3 o'clock and we'll just run through some things and get you absolutely set up to do well in this exam. You did really well in the classroom on this. I'm sure you can knock them dead in the real exam. Okay.